afternoon for everybody who now is listening our podcast. This is Podcast Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana Koval. And today we will discuss a very interesting topic about working with people using a people-centered approach. And today my guest is Blaire Palmer. Hi, Blaire.
Hi, lovely to see you.
I'm also happy to see you, but before we're starting, could you make a short presentation of your professional background, maybe something personal issues to let my audience know more about you, and I hope then follow you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Blaire. I'm an executive coach and keynote speaker and author. I started my career actually as a BBC journalist. So I worked for the BBC as a news producer for 10 years before I became kind of disillusioned, and discovered what was at that time, 25 years ago, the brand new discipline of executive coaching. So I became a coach in 2000. And over the last 25 years, I've written 4 books. I speak around the world on the future of work and the future of leadership. And I help organizations through transformation. And I live in England with 2 dogs who might at any moment decide that they want to be on the podcast too. So I do apologize if that happens.
But it's I think so normal when some our for dogs, cats, or children could come to our podcast because we discussed how to stay people when you work. And for our podcast, we decided to use a very provocative topic. Don't treat it, your people like a machine. So we discussed the approach which now we should use in post-industrial era. My first question for you, when we talk, don't treat it people like a machine. What is the difference in the approach which leaders, companies should use for working with their employees right now? And what is the difference between right now and the, I think, past period when
Yeah.
we have any other approaches for people management? Could you share your
My
ideas,
dog,
please?
I'm so sorry. My dog just brought in a ball, a squeaky ball. So I need to
Uh,
remove it. Yes. So we can absolutely talk about that. So, if you think about an industrial age economy, you've got factories, you've got related industries. What is really important is efficiency and predictability and productivity. Now, humans are not great at that. We are unpredictable. We have emotions. We have lives outside of work. And so at that time, they developed this idea of how do we get people to be as efficient and predictable and productive as possible? Because that's all that matters to us. How much of this product can we produce in this factory? And management theory really generated out of that. So when I was young, there were things called time and motion studies. I don't know if they had that where you are, but a time and motion study is a consultant that comes in and watches the workers and tries to work out, are they moving in the most efficient way? And how can we make that more efficient? So people were really treated like we're trying to tune a machine to be optimal. And then the role of the manager becomes to ensure that people are delivering those productivity benefits and being efficient. But today, we don't, I mean, even if we have factories, we have machines that can do most of the work that people used to do in the past. And what we want from a lot of our people is their brain, right? We want their creativity. We want them to innovate. We want them to care. We need them to care. We need them to come up with ideas. We need them to go above and beyond. We need them to take their initiative. And frankly, you can't treat people like machines. I'm so sorry. You can't treat people like machines if what you really need is their humanity. And so we have to rethink what is management, what is leadership, if what you're trying to create is an environment where it's the humanity in people that thrives, as opposed to, their efficiency and their productivity. We have extraordinary technology now, and increasingly so, that can do that kind of stuff. We don't need people to be on a production line. We don't need the people to be the efficiency part of the puzzle.
I totally agree with you. And because you work with leaders, what recommendation could you give for leaders who want to become more people-oriented and use ideas about treating people like a people, more human-centered way? What should they do on the personal level, on the team level, or the corporate level? I think all the three levels are very important for a change in the organization. What advice
Yeah.
could you give to leaders?
I think the first thing is for leaders themselves to get in touch with their own humanity. That I think a lot of leaders also think somehow that they are a machine, and they treat themselves like machines. They work very long hours. They don't take good breaks. They don't make time for recovery. They don't create time to think. They believe that their value comes from how much they can do in a particular amount of time. And if they don't unpick that for themselves and rethink, how do I actually add value? Is it by how much I can do in a period of time, or is it the environment that I create? Is it about the questions that I ask that get other people to think? So what is the real way that I add value? Is it about anticipating challenges ahead and all that kind of thing? If they're not doing that for themselves, they will not be able to support their people. So I think the first step is for leaders to think about what is, if it, you can hire another person to be busy, but we can't all be running around being busy. We need somebody to do some thinking and some planning and some imagining. And that starts with the leaders. So that's this first step. And then to use that insight about how they create value themselves to think about, okay, now, how do the people that work in our organization really create value? Is it just about being busy? Is it just about the amount of actions they can take in a day or in a week or in a month? Or actually, do we need something else from then? And what is my job in creating the environment where people can do their very best work, bring all of their humanity? And I think that's the starting point.
May I ask about leaders? You mentioned what usually they also treated themselves like a machine. Absolutely agree. Sometimes they are very nervous if they don't have a lot of tasks. Now in the current world, the leaders time to time thinks if I'm overloaded, that means what I'm on demand. So it means what I'm a good leader. It means what I need to everyone. So it let them to feel themselves better than in the situation that they have a time for rest. But for understanding this, a change in their mindset, a change in the culture, you need to make a great shift. How usually do you do this with leaders for making the great shift in their mindset? Because I absolutely understand how it could be difficult, especially with leaders who think that productivity and overload is absolutely normal.
Yeah. I think you have to ask those leaders, and this is one of the things I do as a coach, is what you're doing, the way that you're doing things, how's it going? Like, is it actually working? Have you found that acting this way and adding more and more to your to-do list is making more money for the business, is generating better ideas, is anticipating, challenges that might be around the corner? Or is the pain that you're in today because you didn't invest the time until now to do the thinking, to do the planning, to anticipate what might be coming, to think differently? And if we think, I mean, it's an old model now, but I'm sure you're familiar with Stephen Covey's 4-box urgent, important matrix. And they find themselves stuck in the urgent, important. And they can see that there is non-urgent, really important stuff to do. But they're stuck in this urgent, important box. And that's because they treat everything, even if it's not important, like it's urgent. And so if they look at, well, what's the stuff that I'm doing that feels urgent, but actually it's not moving any dials. I mean, it keeps me very busy, but it doesn't change anything. We're just hamsters in a wheel. What can I take out? And instead of filling it with more activity, can I fill it with thinking about the non-urgent important stuff? And there is plenty of it. I mean, most of the meetings they're going to, most of the email chains that they're responding to, most of the reports that they're writing, not moving any dials, not making any difference to bottom line or to customer experience, but it's keeping them really, really busy.
If we talk about if we talk about leaders, also an example for their employees. When the leader starts a change times to times, the employees also feel themselves like they're in an atmosphere of unpredictability, because they understand they know the leader in the past, but now they have a new leader. What's happened? How could you help leader to explain these changes and also engage a team and company in these changes?
Yeah. Yes, it's very unsettling for employees. And not only is the leader changing, but the leader is measuring their performance differently. The leader is now saying, I don't want you to just say yes to every request that I make. I want you to challenge me. I want you to tell me whether the things I'm asking you to do make a difference or not. And those employees have been trained not to do that, to be good boys and girls, a bit like school. The manager asks you to write a report and you write a report. They say it's due for Friday and you get it in on Thursday so that you get extra points. So that we've created this dynamic. And now we're trying to change that. So of course it's unsettling. It's also unsettling because they don't know if the leader means it. And they also don't know if it will be okay if they make mistakes while they're learning how to do things this new way. Are they going to get blamed? We're very, very stuck in this old way of working. So I think that the leader has to be really transparent about what they're trying. So to have the conversation that says, listen, I know we've done it this way. It's not working for me. How is it working for you? And have the conversation. The people won't be so honest, but they might at the beginning, but they might share some of the pain that they're in. And then for the leader to say, okay, so this is what I'd like to try. I'm learning at the same time as you are learning. I'm going to make mistakes with this. I'm going to get back into my old habits sometimes. I'm going to go too far, maybe, with this. And we're going to make mistakes. But I really value you coming on this journey with me, and I'll learn as much from you as you'll learn from me. And keeping that dialogue going. It does not have to be a secret. You're allowed to say, I'm going to try something, and I don't really know how to do it, but I feel like anything has got to be better than the way we've been doing things, and therefore it's worth experimenting a bit.
Mm-hmm. Blaire, I want to ask you one question from a perspective of HR. This is a person who usually is responsible also for the culture and make a huge impact. And in situation, then the HR want to change maybe some leaders with if other styles of management. What could you recommend? What helps you to provoke these changes in the leaders' behavior? Maybe what could HR use for starting this dialogue with leader? What could help them to change their leaders, to change their approach in the company if they understand what could be better for leader and also for employees? Could you share maybe your ideas, your experience, your life hacks?
I think HR has to be willing to do this to themselves before they ask anybody else in the organization to do it. So if you're in HR and you're looking around and you're saying, we've got leaders here who are still stuck in a command and control style, or they need to have their fingers in everything. They don't seem to care very much about their people. Everything is measured by activity, input, rather than outcomes. The first thing they have to do is to look at themselves. What do we do that also? Do we also measure ourselves by inputs and not outcomes? Do I, as the HRD, have my fingers in a lot of things? What if I was to treat my people like I trust them? What if I was to extend my willingness to trust the people in HR to start with? What comes up for me? So very interesting. A few years ago, before COVID, I was working with an HR team who wanted to introduce hybrid working. And they said, we've tried to introduce this idea of hybrid working, but leaders aren't taking us up on it, and their teams are coming into the office every day, and they don't need to be here. And I said, okay, so tell me about your hybrid working practices. And the HR team said, well, we don't do it because if we start working from home, people in the business will think we're not serious about our work. I was like, well, hang on a minute. Yes, exactly. So unless you're willing to experiment yourselves with what's coming up for you and to go countercultural and to try new things, who on earth are you? What gives you credibility to say other people should do it, but we're not going to? So I think, HR has got to treat themselves like the case study. They've got to start. And I think beyond that, it's about, I see HR as the sort of campaigners for the culture. It's everyone's job, obviously, creating culture. But if it sits with any profession, it's HR to say, this is the kind of culture that we are trying to create, and here is where we are now. And I am going to stand for this, and I'm going to be a thorn in people's side while we move from here to here. And I'm not just in service of the business. I don't just do what I'm told by the business. We are the business, and we believe in culture as a driver of success in our industry. And therefore, I am going to hold these values. I'm going to hold on to them really tightly. I'm going to walk the walk. I'm going to call out behavior that is contrary. I'm going to coach and support and encourage and remove barriers so that we can get here. And they become the kind of the campaigners. They have a manifesto in relation to this cultural piece. So I think that's two things. HR goes first, puts themselves in the pain first, and they also are the campaigners for the culture above and beyond anyone else in the organization.
Blaire, I want to ask about healthy habits of the people-centric approach. You share, for example, ideas what the leaders should have time for rest. Could you share any other ideas? What do you think could be healthy habits for leaders, for employees, for the whole organization, what they could understand, or now they build the post-industrial people-oriented culture?
Yeah. Well, anyone who follows me will know how passionate I've become about physical health. I think that we have completely neglected this aspect of leadership. We have thought that leadership was fundamentally an academic or intellectual exercise, and that really the body of a leader is just to carry their brain around, And I think that is, if we're really creating an environment where we've got the technology, the AI, the bots to do the non-human work, and therefore we need humans to be human, we also need those humans to be well and physically well, because it allows them to have the energy. It allows them to care about other people because they're not so caught up in what's going on with them. It is great for their brain, their cognitive health. It allows them to work longer. You know, we're going to be retiring later and later. We're going to be living longer and longer. We need to stay well. So there's all sorts of reasons why this is important. And yet again, if we look at the way that we work, I mean, I just wrote something about this on LinkedIn today about how we eat and how typical across, you know, pretty much not all cultures, but a lot of cultures, it's something wheat-based at breakfast, it's toast or pastries or cereal or something like that. It's a wheat-based or a grain-based snack because you're starving, because your blood sugar dropped off a cliff after your breakfast. It's a wheat-based or grain-based lunch, same mid-afternoon and same evening. And of course, people are exhausted. They're not getting enough nutrition. They're not getting enough fiber. They're not drinking enough water. They're not getting enough protein. They're not moving enough. They're not using their muscles. They're not using their body. They are literally just carrying their brain around, and their brain is starving, right? So for me, this has become a real platform. It's not all of self-care. It's not all of personal health, but it's a big part that we do not think about when we're thinking about the food that we serve at these sorts of events that I speak at, or the food we serve in the canteen, or the meal deal that people get. I don't know if you have a meal deal, but you know, you go into some shops and you get a sandwich, a packet of crisps, and a drink, and that's your lunch. Well, there is literally no nutrition in that. And of course, you're going to be hungry 20 minutes later. So I think that's massive. And I think leaders need to really think about this and the culture that they've created around food and around movement. I also think the recovery piece is really important. We work ourselves really, really hard. We're on our phones from the moment we wake up. We're looking at screens all day. We are on our screens at night. We go to bed too late, often with a screen. You know, it's the only way we can fall asleep. And I'm not against screens. I mean, I'll watch Netflix at lunchtime and in my breaks or whatever. I'm all over LinkedIn and social media and things. I'm not against it, but we have to balance that up with time to recover. We need to improve our sleep hygiene. We need to have seasons within the organizational year. So yes, there'll be really busy periods where we've got big deadlines, or it's the end of the tax year, or we're coming up to the holidays and we need to push a few things out because everyone's going to be away in the summer. But then there are times where it's quiet and people get to do some thinking, and they get to come into the office a bit late, or they reduce their hours, or, you know, they spend more time with their family. We need to respect ourselves as humans, and not just try to work ourselves like we can have a service every couple of years to tune the machine up and we can keep going forever.
I think it's really wonderful habits. Every time when I visit some offices or industrial plants, I pay attention, for example, for the food which a company use for employees. And sometimes it's junk food. It's not so healthy when we talk about the health of the employees, about their productivity. It also influence. And like you said, a lot of our habits will influence our professional life also. My next question is for you. It's from the perspective of the employee. We discussed from a leader perspective, from HR perspective, from the employee perspective. For example, I'm an employee. I work in the company. I think the company may be people oriented, but I want to improve it because I visited your event, made Blaire understand what I want to make some changes in my work. What could you recommend to employee? What they could implement? Maybe how they could connect with their teammates, and well, maybe we could change their work day. Then they work in office or in hybrid mode. So, what could you offer?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Because normally I do speak to audiences of whole organization, everyone from the most junior to the most senior. But typically I'm talking to leaders. And I don't want people to feel, well, then it's nothing to do with me then. It's for the leaders to take care of this. So I think it's a really great question. I think there's a couple of things. So firstly, there is to bring your authentic self to work. So there used to be this idea that you sort of leave part of yourself at the door when you arrive. And some people are very keen to have their life outside of work and their life inside of work, and that's absolutely fine. But there is still an authentic work version of you. And I like the work version of me. In fact, I'm more comfortable with the work version of me than the home version of me. I feel a bit more together at the work side of me. But it's still human, right? It's still about building relationships. It's still about listening. It's about caring about people and what they're going through, and particularly in that respect, being coach-like. In other words, I don't have to be everybody's best friend, or I don't have to pretend that I am everyone's best friend, but I can be a coach to people. And if I see in my work environment that someone's struggling, I can assist and connect with them by coaching, by asking what's going on, what are you struggling with? What could you do about it? What ideas have you had? How can I support you? These kind of lovely coaching type questions are a really great way to still professionally, but to make connection. And then the other thing I think is to connect with people who are more difficult for you to connect with. So actually, it's pretty easy for you to connect with people in your team. You all work in the same, maybe you're all finance people, or you're all operations people, or maybe you're all based in this region, or whatever it is that you all share the same client or customer. So you have a lot in common. But who are the people that it's really hard for you to hear? They may be in a competing team, or they may be in a location where the time zone is difficult for you, or your team and their team, there's some tension between you for some reason. How can you go and connect with them? And again, I think this is really about listening to understand. It's about saying, picking up the phone and saying, I've not spent any time understanding you and your team, but we have to both be successful here for the organization to be successful. Why don't I come over, spend a couple of hours with you, and you can tell me what it's like over there. You tell me the challenges you're having, you tell me what you're brilliant at, tell me how the world looks from there. And I just want to come and listen. And I think that's a brilliant way to break down those barriers.
I think it's wonderful tips. But I want, in the end of our meeting, I want to back to leaders. And my last questions, the usual questions for my guests, are also question for you, but I want to have some addition. Usually I ask, what three main tips could you give to leaders who want to change their culture, who want to change their approach? But for you, I have some addition. What tips you could give for long, maybe strategic changes, but also for the quick wins? What maybe they could do in the 24 hours after they will hear your advice? Could you give three different tips for the short terms and the long terms prior which they could use in their lives?
Okay. All right. Firstly, and it builds on the point I've just made, pick a person that you feel like for some reason you have nothing in common, either with them as a person or with the role that they do within the organization. Pick someone and reach out to them, pick up the phone or drop them a line and say, I want to come and I know it's a bit weird, but I want to come and understand. I do not understand anything about your side of the business. When can I come? So that's the first thing. You could do that in the next 10 minutes. You could do that. Secondly, I'm really a massive fan of sleep. My life has been transformed by putting a really good sleep hygiene in place. And one of the things that I find really has made a big difference is when I have the same bedtime every night, if I possibly can. I mean, obviously, there are days when I'm traveling or my daughter needs me or something, but typically I have the same bedtime when the light goes off. But 45 minutes before that, I turn off all screens, including television. And lights are dim slightly, and I'm going around, tidy the kitchen, get ready for bed, read a bit. Happens in that 45 minutes, but no screens. So that's the second thing that I would do. And then the third thing is a slightly bigger question, which you can start thinking about straight away, but the answer might not come straight away, which is to ask yourself, what are the limits that I put on my willingness to trust? Even if I say I trust people, what limits do I put on that? So, for instance, I say I trust people, but I still sign off all the expenses myself, no matter how small. I say I trust people, but I go to all the meetings because if they can't make a decision, I need to be there to make a decision. I say I trust people, but when there's conflict amongst team members, I come in and I'm the savior and I fix it. What are the limits that you currently put, and how can you extend those limits? And think hard about it, and you'll know if you've extended the limits in your behavior, because it will be very uncomfortable. But I think we have to start with a belief. We tend to start with a belief that people can't really be trusted, that they're trying to get away with something, that people need to be supervised, otherwise they'll all be operating by their own agenda. I think we have to switch that and say the vast majority of people have positive intent. The vast majority of people are doing what they think is right. Now let's start with that. That I can trust. They might not be very good at their job. They might make bad decisions. They might be someone that I find really difficult to work with. But as far as they're concerned, their intent is positive. Now, starting from there, how do I extend my willingness to trust?
Blaire, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this conversation. Okay. This is podcast. Happy at work and stay connected.